In these final days of the year, nothing seems terribly wrong, and yet something feels off. Your life has not collapsed, no great tragedy has struck, and still peace feels distant. You open a book, but your mind drifts after a few lines. You prepare a meal, yet your heart feels empty as you stir the pot. You sit alone in silence, sighing without knowing why, feeling tired in a way that sleep does not fix. It is as if an invisible weight presses gently on your soul. You tell yourself it is just exhaustion, just the end of the year, just stress. But deep inside, a quiet question lingers. Why do I feel unprepared to move forward? These days feel like standing before a threshold, one foot in the old year, one foot hesitant to step into the new. And sometimes it feels as though something unseen is holding you back. What if this restlessness is not random? What if this heaviness is not coincidence? What if these final days are revealing something about your soul that you have been too busy to notice? Have you felt this too in these final days of the year?
According to Christian spiritual tradition, the end of the year is not a neutral time. It is a moment of transition, and every transition is vulnerable. Darkness does not always strike with violence or scandal. Most of the time, it works quietly, patiently, almost gently. The enemy does not need to destroy your life. He does not need to make you commit a great sin. All he needs is something far simpler: to make you stop praying, just for now, to whisper that hope can wait, to convince you that conversion can be postponed until later. In these final days, the battle is not dramatic, it is subtle. You tell yourself, I'll pray properly next year. I'm too tired tonight. I'll deal with my soul after the holidays. And darkness smiles. Because the enemy rejoices most when a soul crosses into a new year without God, not in rebellion, but in forgetfulness. This is not accident. This is not coincidence. It is strategy. The end of the year is when many souls are spiritually exhausted, emotionally distracted, and quietly discouraged. It is when prayer feels dry, when silence feels uncomfortable, when hope feels thin. And that is precisely when darkness works the hardest, not to drag you away screaming, but to let you drift. To let days pass without prayer, to let wounds remain unreconciled, to let souls enter a new season unguarded. But you are still here, and that matters. Do not leave yet. If you want to understand why these days feel heavier than usual and what St. Bridget was shown about this time, stay with us. And before we continue, pause for just a moment. Think of one soul you remember, someone forgotten, someone suffering, someone who may need mercy. Write in the comments with these simple words: I pray for the soul. A single prayer offered now may matter more than you realize. Stay with us. What comes next is a warning, but also a way forward.
Saint Bridget of Sweden was not a woman who sought visions, nor did she desire to speak of hidden things. She was a wife, a mother, and later a consecrated soul who lived a life of prayer, obedience, and deep humility. Yet it was precisely in her faithfulness that God chose to entrust her with sight. Throughout her life, Saint Bridget was granted extraordinary visions, not born of imagination, but rooted in prayer, fasting, and complete surrender to God's will. These revelations were not private curiosities. They were carefully discerned, recorded, and ultimately recognized by the Church as calls to repentance and renewal. What Saint Bridget saw was never meant to entertain or terrify. Her visions were given for one reason alone: to awaken souls before it was too late. Again and again, she was shown the spiritual consequences of human forgetfulness, Not sudden punishment, but slow drifting. Souls that did not fall loudly, but quietly stepped away from grace through delay, distraction, and neglect. Saint Bridget understood something many forget. God warns not to frighten, but to save. She once conveyed a truth that echoes across centuries, a truth as relevant today as it was in her own time. Not all souls are warned, some are shown, so others may be saved. These revelations were not private curiosities, they were carefully discerned, recorded, and ultimately recognized by the Church as calls to repentance and renewal. What Saint Bridget saw was never meant to entertain or terrify. Her visions were given for one reason alone, to awaken souls before it was too late. What she was shown about such times may explain far more than we realize.
It was late into the night when Saint Bridget knelt in prayer. The world outside had fallen silent. No footsteps echoed through the corridors. No voices disturbed the stillness. Only the faint crackle of a candle broke the darkness, its small flame trembling as if it too sensed something unseen. Saint Bridget prayed slowly, deliberately, her breath steady, her heart attentive. This was not a night of visions she expected. It was meant to be ordinary, another offering of faithfulness in the quiet hours when most souls slept. And yet, the air began to feel heavy, not oppressive, not violent, simply different. The silence deepened, becoming almost tangible, as if the room itself were holding its breath. Saint Bridget lifted her eyes, and that was when she became aware that she was no longer alone. Before her stood a presence. It did not burst forth in terror. It did not cry out. It did not threaten or accuse. It simply was. A soul stood there, dim and fragile, marked not by horror, but by a sorrow so profound it seemed to weigh upon the light itself. Its form was indistinct, as though memory and identity were slowly fading. There were no chains, no flames, only a sadness that words could scarcely contain. Saint Bridget felt her heart tighten. The soul did not approach, it did not retreat. It remained still, as if uncertain whether it was even permitted to be seen. When it finally spoke, its voice was low, hollow, stripped of all pride. "I did not think there would be no more time." The words fell into the silence like stones into deep water. Saint Bridget understood at once. This was not a soul that had rejected God. This was a soul that had delayed him. The soul spoke again, slowly, painfully. "I believed there would always be another day, another prayer, another chance to begin again." There was no anger in its tone, only regret, sharp, clear, and irreversible. It spoke of ordinary days, busy days, of plans postponed, of prayers meant for later, of moments when grace knocked softly, but the heart was too distracted to answer. "I was not wicked," the soul whispered. "I was simply unprepared." Saint Bridget felt her heart tighten. The soul did not approach, it did not retreat. It remained still, as if uncertain whether it was even permitted to be seen. When it finally spoke, its voice was low, hollow, stripped of all pride. "I thought time belonged to me. I did not know it could run out so quietly." And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the presence began to fade, not violently, but like a breath slowly exhaled. The candle flickered. The silence returned. Saint Bridget remained kneeling, trembling,
aware that she had been shown something not meant for her alone, but for every soul that still believes tomorrow is guaranteed. And she knew what she had witnessed was only the beginning. Before the soul faded completely, it was permitted to speak once more, not of its own suffering, but of what was coming. Its voice grew quieter, heavier, as if each word carried a warning meant for those still living. The days ahead, the soul said, will not be loud. There will be no sudden collapse, no constant alarms, no obvious signs that something is wrong. Instead, it described a danger far more subtle. The coming time, the year that would unfold ahead, would be filled with movement, distraction, and noise that feels harmless. People would be busier than ever. Their days would be full, their schedules crowded, their minds occupied. And yet, their souls would be increasingly unattended. Prayer will grow shorter, the soul whispered, not because people stop believing, but because they believe they can pray later. Faith would not disappear, it would simply be postponed. The soul spoke of temptations that no longer shock, of habits slowly accepted, of moral confusion treated as normal. Vices would spread quietly, wrapped in convenience and indifference. Many would walk through their days without noticing how far they had drifted. Then the soul said something that caused St. Bridget's heart to tremble. "Do not be careless," it warned, "when you move through the world." It did not speak of fear, but of discernment. It spoke symbolically, of eyes that look without compassion, of glances empty of love, of a cold attention that strips others of dignity. Not every danger announces itself. Some appear ordinary, familiar, even human, yet leave the soul unsettled and restless. Not every threat comes with violence, the soul said. Some come with distraction, some come with emptiness. Again and again, people would tell themselves the same lie. Later, after this season, next year. And that, the soul revealed, was the greatest deception. The year ahead, 2026, would not be dark because of disaster. It would be dangerous because many would forget they have a soul. They would protect their bodies, their plans, their finances, but neglect the quiet voice within that longs for God. Evil does not need chaos, it only needs forgetfulness. As the words faded, St. Bridget understood the weight of what she had been shown. The warning was not meant to cause fear of the future. It was meant to awaken the present. Because a year does not become heavy all at once. It becomes heavy, one neglected prayer at a time.
After the soul vanished, St. Bridget was drawn into a deeper vision, one not bound to a single person, but spread across many lives at once. She saw families gathered under the same roof, sharing meals, sharing space, yet standing far apart in spirit. Words were exchanged, but understanding was thin. Small disagreements grew frequent, old wounds resurfaced. Children listened, watched, and learned a restlessness they could not name. Love was still present, but it struggled to be heard. St. Bridget saw days marked by tension rather than peace. Homes that should have been places of refuge felt unsettled, not because of great tragedy, but because prayer had slowly slipped away. Without that quiet return to God, the heart grew noisy and patience wore thin. In the vision, nights felt heavier. Doors closed, windows darkened, silence settled, not the gentle silence of rest, but the uneasy stillness of unresolved hearts. St. Bridget understood this not as a threat, but as a sign. When prayer is neglected, the soul becomes vulnerable to confusion and fear, even within familiar walls. She saw people moving through crowded streets, surrounded by voices, screens, and constant motion, yet inwardly adrift. Souls floated from one distraction to another, rarely stopping long enough to listen to what truly mattered. There was no single moment of collapse, no clear point where faith was abandoned. Instead, there was gradual loss. Prayer shortened, silence avoided, conscience dulled. And then St. Bridget heard a sentence spoken with terrible clarity, not in anger, but in sorrow. They did not reject God, they simply stopped listening. That was the heart of the vision. The year ahead was not shown as cursed or doomed, it was shown as fragile. A year where much could be saved or quietly lost, depending not on great acts, but on small, faithful choices. St. Bridget understood then the greatest danger of 2026 would not be what happens around us, it would be what happens within us when we forget to listen.
The final days of the year are not just a countdown on a calendar. They're a doorway, a quiet threshold between what has been lived and what is yet to come. And how you stand at this door matters more than you may realize. Because you do not step into a new year empty-handed. You carry something with you. Do you cross this threshold holding resentment that was never released? Wounds replayed in silence, waiting for an apology that never came? Do you carry a habit of postponed prayer, moments when God was gently set aside because life felt too busy, too tiring, too overwhelming? Or perhaps you carry something even quieter, a forgotten soul, someone you once promised to pray for, someone whose name still passes through your mind, only to be pushed away by distraction. These final days reveal what we are truly bringing forward. The enemy understands this well. He does not need to block your path. He only needs to delay your step. What darkness desires most is simple and deceptively gentle, for you to say just one sentence, "I'll pray next year." Not a refusal, not rebellion, just postponement. Because a prayer delayed is often a prayer forgotten. And when prayer fades, discernment weakens. When discernment weakens, the soul grows tired. And a tired soul is easier to lead, not into chaos, but into quiet distance from God. This is why these days feel heavier than others. They are asking something of you. Not perfection, not heroic acts, just honesty. As you stand at the edge of this year, pause and look at what you are carrying. What needs forgiveness? What needs prayer? Who needs to be remembered? The door is still open. What you choose to bring with you now may shape far more than the days ahead. It may shape the state of your soul. After the weight of the vision, St. Bridget did not remain in fear. What followed was not condemnation, but instruction. She was shown that God does not ask for extraordinary acts from ordinary souls. He does not demand perfection before allowing grace to work. What he asks for is far simpler and far more powerful. She was told that in times like these, salvation often begins with small faithfulness. First, return to prayer, even when it feels dry. St. Bridget understood that prayer is not measured by emotion, but by presence. There will be days when words feel empty, when silence feels heavy, when nothing seems to change. Yet these are not signs to stop praying. They are invitations to remain. A dry prayer offered with humility is more precious than a passionate prayer offered only when it feels easy. Second, offer one prayer for another soul. Not for yourself, not for your plans, but for someone else, living or dead. A soul who may be forgotten, a soul who may have no one praying for them. Saint Bridget was shown that such prayers pierce darkness quietly, without noise, without recognition, yet with immense power. One prayer offered in love can become a bridge of mercy for a soul that cannot help itself. And third, enter the new year reconciled, not perfect. God does not wait for flawless hearts, He waits for honest ones. Reconciliation may mean forgiving someone who never apologized. It may mean returning to confession after a long absence. It may simply mean admitting, quietly before God, "I need you." Saint Bridget was shown that heaven rejoices not over dramatic transformations, but over small returns. This was the heart of the message. Not great acts, not public displays, but small, faithful steps taken consistently. Hope does not begin when fear disappears. Hope begins when a soul chooses to trust God again, one prayer at a time. Just before the vision faded completely, the soul was allowed to speak one final time. Its voice was weaker now, as if each word required great effort. There was no accusation in its tone, only a sorrow so deep it seemed to echo beyond the room. "If someone had prayed for me," the soul said softly, "this would not be my place." The words pierced Saint Bridget's heart. In that moment, she understood that this was not a cry of bitterness, but a revelation of mercy delayed. The soul did not blame God. It did not curse others. It simply revealed how much a single prayer, offered at the right time, could have changed everything. Saint Bridget began to tremble, not from fear of the soul, but from the weight of human life. How quietly eternity can be shaped by small choices made or not made. Tears fell as she realized how often souls are forgotten, not out of cruelty, but out of distraction. And then, in the midst of her trembling, she heard another voice, gentle, steady, filled not with judgment, but with compassion. She was reminded that while time has limits, mercy does not, that prayers offered now still matter, that no act of love is ever wasted in the eyes of God. Saint Bridget felt peace return to her heart. The warning had been given not to condemn the living, but to awaken them, because as long as one soul still prays, hope has not ended. Before this moment passes, do not leave in silence. You have heard a warning, but more importantly, you have been given an opportunity. This is not a video meant to frighten you and then let you go unchanged. It is an invitation, a pause, a sacred interruption before the year turns and time quietly moves forward again. Right now, you are still here, and that means something can still be done. Do not underestimate the power of a single prayer offered with intention. In a world filled with noise, prayer is one of the few acts that truly reaches beyond what we can see. It crosses distance, it crosses time, it reaches souls who can no longer speak for themselves. Before 2026 begins, we ask you to do something simple but profound. Do not close this moment without responding. Think of one soul, someone who has passed away, someone who suffered, someone who may have been forgotten, or even someone you loved but never prayed for as you should have. Then leave a prayer in the comments using these words: "I pray for the soul of..." No long explanations are needed. No perfect words are required. Just a name, just a prayer, just an act of love. When many people pray together, something shifts, quietly, invisibly, but truly. This space becomes more than a video. It becomes a place of intercession, a place where mercy is invited. Do not think your prayer is too small. The soul Saint Bridget saw was not saved by great crowds, but might have been saved by one prayer. And perhaps this prayer, the one you offer now, is the reason 2026 will not be worse. Stay, pray, and step into the new year with hope. As the year comes to an end, remember this: the new year does not ask you to be perfect, it asks you to be present. You do not need to have every answer, every plan, or every wound healed. You only need the courage to step forward with God beside you. A year walked with Him is never wasted, even when it is difficult. May peace guard your heart in the days ahead. May hope quietly take root where fear once lived. And may you enter the new year not alone, but accompanied by grace. Go forward gently. God is already waiting.